Hi all, this is Once and Future Gamer, and it is here. Welcome to Pokemon Challenge number 100. Last time was brutal as we sought to see if I could beat Pokemon Fire Red with only bug type moves. Let's follow that up with a solo run as we return to Pokemon White 2 and answer the question of if I can beat it with only a single Charmander. Ha! It's the second time I've used Charmander this year. Will it be harder than when I did it with Pokemon Emerald? We'll see. We've got decent special attack and speed, we've got less than ideal HP and defence. We get quite a lot of fire moves by level up. Flame Burst and Flamethrower will likely be the most useful of them all. Dragon Rage might be handy at the start of the game, but it will lose impact as it goes along. We do get some nice moves via TM, including Fighting, Rock, Ground, Ghost, Dragon, Flying and normal coverage. It is a shame that most of these are physical rather than special. Our physical attack isn't too bad. We do get Swords Dance and Hone Claws too, so we might be able to do something with that. The only tutor move we may get some utility out of is Thunder Punch. The rules are on the screen throughout. The reason I decided to do this challenge was for my girlfriend. She recently got a Charmander tattoo on her ankle because she knows I have somewhat of an attachment to that Pokemon. As always, if you do enjoy what you see, then like, subscribe and ring that bell. Just purely for the laugh, I changed it up and named the character OEFG 100 this time for obvious reasons. Now I used the Universal Pokemon Randomizer to replace Tepig with Charmander. This is pretty much a like-for-like replacement, so it speaks for itself. It means the rival has Oshawott, which is the hardest for us to fight by a considerable amount. It's probably going to be a simple enough start to the game because we're kind of using what we're meant to have, a first form starter. I nicknamed Charmander Pyroclast and we have a quirky nature, so neutral stat gains I think, and as expected we have the Blaze ability. This was the gen where we did get introduced to hidden ability, so it was a possibility we could have ended up with Charmander's hidden ability, which is Solar Power I believe. Anyway, rival fight with Hugh and his Oshawott. This has the potential to be tricky, but we should be fine. There are a lot less rival fights in this game than there are in Black and White 1 for sure. This actually does become quite touch and go at one point because there is kind of one moment that I think we might lose. I work out that we will probably 5-hit Oshawott with our Scratch, which isn't an issue. It can probably 4-hit us, which bit of a problem. When it tail whips us, that does a massive damage, but I don't want to think about what would have happened if it had gone for tackle on the last turn. But we get through it, we drop it with a final scratch, and we can move on. So then, what was I wanted to do for this milestone? I was definitely wanted to share some thoughts about the previous 99 some experiences, how it started versus how it's going. I feel like I've probably told this story somewhere before, but I guess it started about 2.5 years ago now. Pokemon challenges were becoming a thing back then. The first kind of thing I found in this mould was a series from a creator called Enter the Unknown, who did a series about beating the games using the same team and moves that Ash Ketchum had at the same stage in that region. Then I kind of found Mah-Dry-Bread stuff and that sparked some interest. I think Chaotic Meatball did some stuff I found back then. There was a YouTuber named Solar Primal who did some really good stuff in that mould. There was one named Tion who I found. Oh yeah, and Zwigo. So yeah, I got really interested in this stuff. And well, how does this stuff go? I took a look at it and thought, well, how hard can that actually be? So here we are some time later. Anyway, it's not long before we have the time for another rival fight as we face Hugh at the Flockacy Ranch, and I suppose we should see how this plays out this time. I don't know if he'll have a water move this time. I guess we will see soon. I hope not, or we're going to be in trouble. Well, if it does, it never goes through it. This time, when it comes down to it, Oshawott isn't as much trouble as before. Although we do get hit with a tackle, it just spams Tail Whip over and over, and eventually we can take it down as we get the damage in before it can attack us. 4 hits, that's what it takes to bring it down, and we come out mostly unscathed. The next major fight is the first gym battle versus Cheron, so we need to prep up for this. It shouldn't be too bad, particularly if we can get to level 16 and pick up Dragon Rage, but I do appreciate that might be too much levelling. Cheren is actually a surprisingly difficult opponent in this game, believe it or not. I guess we'll see how this goes. Patrat is a 4-hit with Ember, but it never actually attacks us, which is nice. It goes to work up twice, which is moderately terrifying, but thankfully our second Ember drops it into healing range, and when he uses the potion, we can end it before it attacks. Lillipup does hurt us quite badly, all things considered, but it's not fatal, and as a result, 3 Embers are enough to bring the doggo down. Good thing he didn't still have that potion, huh? 1 badge down. Anyway then, something I wanted to do in this 100th challenge was talk about some of the hardest challenges overall that I've done, and definitely some of the most consistently hard fights in these runs across them all. Let's talk about the fights themselves first. Remember, this is just my opinion. This is probably a loose ranking, but I'd say that in a top 10, Elite 4 Phoebe from Ruby, Sapphire and Emerald is probably number 10. Now in theory, she shouldn't be hard, but bulky Pokemon combined with Protect, Pressure and the possibility of Curse is rough in a single Pokemon run. I have some major trauma from the Emerald with a single slacking run right there and then. Plus, she does have decent move coverage. Number 9 probably goes from the Rival Trio Gauntlet in X and Y, and this is the only Gen 6 one that is on my list, I'll add. You have to fight the 3 rivals one after another, and if you lose, you have to begin over. Shauna and Tierno aren't too bad, but Trevor is usually tricky at the end with his nuzzling Raichu, plus an Aerodactyl and a Florges. Number 8 goes to the Cycling Road rival fight, which isn't just the hardest rival fight in Hoenn, it has a very real chance of being a contender for one of the hardest rival fights in the entire franchise. You don't have much on your side at that time, not much of a move pool potentially, and her starter has the potential to be a wall. Number 7 goes to Gardenia from Diamond, Pearl and most prominently Platinum. She's not easy in any iteration unless you have a super effective move, but even then, not always. Often the early game fights can be the hardest when your resources are low. A Roserade is just an annoying opponent at that stage in the game, especially as it can hit hard and has paralysing capabilities, plus a move that never misses in Stab Magical Leaf. It is a walk to the next gym, and this one is a poison type opponent in Roxy. So I'm reasonably confident. Her coughing might be tough, but we should be fine since we will have Dragon Rage for sure. And Whirlipede is very flammable indeed. I head into the fight curious as to how it will play out, and it really turns out I had nothing to worry about. Coughing is a one-hit knockout with Dragon Rage, which I wasn't entirely expecting, but oh well. Whirlipede does survive Ember on red health, but we managed to get the burn, and although we do get tagged with Venoshock, the burn damage takes it out before Roxy can heal it. Okay then, I wasn't expecting it to go like that. Well, time to go and survive the Pokestar Studios crap. Next gym should also be a cinch, since it's the Bug Gym and I'm entirely confident here. 2 Pokemon with a quad weakness to fire. Yeah, we are cleaning up here. Ka-ching! Cashback. But anyway, since we've got to do the sewers beneath Castelia before then, I'll carry on with what I was talking about before with the hardest fights. Number 6 has to go to the champion rival fight from the Kanto games, more prominently Fire Red and Leaf Green than Red, Blue and Yellow. I have had some absolutely painful fights against him. He uses a balanced team, which always a problem, because when most trainers use a single type, there is always a way to counter them. It might be something as base as spam double team and hope for the best. I've had runs where I've needed to do that, particularly with fire types in Emerald versus Wallace, but a balanced team has the potential to cause problems. And on the subject of that, number 5 is the Cyrus fight in Pokemon Platinum in the Distortion world. What makes this such a pain is having to traverse the Distortion world and Mount Coronet back to him if you lose. His team has a fairly common weakness in Electric, but even then, stuff like Crobat, Gyarados and Honchkrow can still mess you up. and that's if you're even fortunate enough to get an electric move. If you don't have an electric move, good luck against the Gyarados. Number 4 goes to the gauntlet at the end of Black and White 1, where you have to face N and then Ghetsis one after the other. At least compared to the other gauntlet, the Gen 6 rival fight, if you do beat N and then lose to Ghetsis, you don't have to fight N again, which, not too bad. But anyway, N has his legendary and a reasonably balanced team. Although again, it's not too bad if you have a fighting type move. Archeops can hit hard at first, at least until the defeatist kicks in, and he has a Caracosta with Sturdy, which always annoying. And then there's Ghetsis, who tries to Toxic Stall with Cofagrigus, which can be the bane of a single Pokemon run if you don't plan appropriately. The rest of his team can be annoying too. His Bouffalont can hit like a train, and the Hydreigon does have the capacity to mess you up, especially in Black and White 1. For some reason, he made it into a physical attacker in Black and White 2, which, Hydreigon, not really a physical attacker. Gen 5 Black and White 1, definitely, special attacker if I'm remembering that right, so it is lethal. Anyway, Berg, let's head in and do this. I know that Firefang is probably going to screw us over, and with hindsight, I'm not entirely sure why I replaced Ember with it. Sure, it's slightly more power, but it is less accurate. There's a meme going around at the moment at the time of writing about someone being told they have a 90% chance of surviving a surgery, and then they remember what a 90% accuracy move looks like in a Pokemon game, and they understandably freak out. Berg is as easy as might be expected when we strike his Swogloom down with a Fire Fang. So far so good there then. Everything is looking pretty golden already. Next out is Dwebble, and this one should be a little harder. It survives Dragon Rage, then goes for Rock Polish and Smackdown in quick succession, which does nearly half our health in damage. Not good, but we take it out with another Dragon Rage. Levani is faster and strikes us with Cut, but we survive and land Fire Fang to end it. 3 badges down already. There is a Colress fight next, and on the face of it, this should be easy. A Fire type versus Steel types. You should never examine the face of it solely, because I think there's going to be a sting in the tail, and it won't be as easy as expected. You know what? I'm right. 2 things make the Magnemite annoying. 2 things. Number 1 is Sturdy. I hate that ability so much, as it means it survives a fatal hit, and it gets reset when he heals it, which probably the worst bit. Also, point number 2, Thunder Wave. This makes the fight annoying as we get paralysed and repeatedly hit with Spark, one of them a crit. We do eventually take Magnemite down, but Clink has no problem coming in and finishing us off with a Gear Grind, which irksome for sure. I come back a week or so later, I was on vacation okay, and make another stab at this. I was unlucky before, but I think we can do this for sure. I need to evaluate my tactics. A Cherry Berry would make this easy, but no access to them yet is a problem, or at least not that I can find. When it comes to facing Magnemite, Sturdy is a problem, so I come at it from a different angle. I go for Return first rather than Flame Burst. Flame Burst can't kill it, Return breaks the Sturdy, and that stops Colress from healing because we don't do enough damage to trigger it. So, as a result, we only have to hit it twice rather than thrice. We do get hit with a few sparks, but we can shake them off. Clink is that bit faster and hits us with Gear Grind, but we move despite the paralysis and we can Flame Burst it down to give us a win. I never like fighting on this route, no matter the game. The Sandstorm is a pain. And as we head towards Nimbasa City, I suppose it's time just to conclude the chat about the 10 hardest fights I've found in these games consistently, and some honourable mentions before I do. Honourable mentions include Whitney and the Satanic Cow, naturally. I'd include Lorelei in that list, probably more notably from Fire Red and Leaf Green than Red, Blue and Yellow. I would definitely include the first Mars battle from Diamond, Pearl and Platinum, as that Pure Ugly can hit hard for that stage in-game. I'd mention Karen for sure, with the Sand attacking Umbreon, the paralysing Vileplume and the cursing Gengar, which all have the capacity for annoyance in a single Pokemon run. From Gen 2, I'd also mention the rival fight in Azalea Town, which can be annoying if you don't have the tools to deal with him appropriately. Plus, Ghastly with Hypnosis and Spite is just mildly frustrating, especially if, as with some runs I've done, quite a few actually, you've only got Mudslap with 10 PP to attack with. I'd also say Cynthia too. It was tough, but there's only ever been a few times I found Cynthia to be massively annoying. Anyway, so, the third hardest fight, I'd say Tate and Liza from Emerald, for reasons that have been well documented as time has gone by. We've got the double battle, one opponent that spams Stab Earthquake, while the other three are immune to the effects of it. Annoying, massively. Number 2, I would say that the Mars and Jupiter double battle on Mount Coronet is number 2. Individually, they can be annoying. Together, they're annoying because a loss means having to travel back through the mountain. They have status moves and we are accompanied by the rival to fight them, who somehow loses all his skill as a trainer in this battle and spends most of his time having his Munchlax spam Stockpile and Swallow. You want to know what the hardest though is in my opinion? I'll tell you shortly. In Nimbasa City, there's a fight with the 4th gym leader, Eliza, and I do not know how this one will go. Could be easy, could be difficult. Once again, I figure that Paralysis is going to be an annoying problem. I have taught Pyroclast Dig as an option for the fight, but it won't work on Emolga, and touching Flaffy is risky. We also have Flamethrower for a bit of extra firepower, if you'll pardon the pun. Anyway, the fight with Eliza. We lose the first attempt thanks to Paralysis and Volt Switch shenanigans, but the second attempt goes better. Emolga survives Flamethrower and Volt Switches out into Flaffy. So, Flaffy paralysed us with Thunder Wave on the first attempt, but here we crit our Flamethrower and we put it down in one hit. Emolga is soon finished off with another Flamethrower despite Eliza's best efforts to heal it. And last is Zeb Striker, who is faster and hits us hard with Volt Switch, but the last blow it strikes on us puts us in red health, which means our Blaze ability kicks in and we take it out for about 2/3 of its health with our powered up Flamethrower. Okay, so this seems like as good a time as any to finish that top 10 hardest fights. So, to recap, number 10 was Phoebe, number 9 was the rival trio Gauntlet from X and Y, number 8 was the Cycling Road rival fight from Ruby, Sapphire and Emerald, number 7 was Gardenia, number 6 was the champion fights from Fire Red and Leaf Green, number 5 was the Distortion World Cyrus fight from Platinum, number 4 was the N and Getsis Gauntlet from Black and White 1, number 3 was Tate and Liza from Emerald, number 2 was the Mars and Jupiter double battle. So, before I say my number 1, remember what I said about Gardenia and how the hardest gym leaders can sometimes be the earlier ones. For our number 1, let's talk about Lenora, the second gym leader from Black and White. On the face of it, she shouldn't be hard. They give you Rock Smash nearby on the off chance that you can learn it, a super effective move. Okay, so, if you are a physical attacker, there is an Intimidate to begin with, which puts you on the back foot. Her Herdia can hit really hard with Takedown. It has a Leer, which will make you even more susceptible to this attack, and even if you bring a Ghost type in, it can even stun lock you with Bite. But oh wait, there's more. If you beat that, her Watchog is going to come in, and you're weak from Herdia, it might well murder you with Retaliate. This makes for a truly hard fight, and I have often found that the best way to beat her is simply to hope that she doesn't pick Retaliate when Watchog comes out. Oh, and she also has Hypnosis, so you have to cross your fingers and hope that that misses as well, because otherwise you're not surviving very long. Can't forget about Hypnosis. That is my personal take on the hardest fight in a single Pokemon run. Shortly, I will be talking about some of the hardest challenges I've ever run in these games. Now I think about it, I've never done Black and White one with a Steel type, but I suppose that would be the ideal counter on the surface of it. I'll have to maybe look at that in the future. The next major fight is the one with Clay, and actually, despite the type advantage in theory, I don't think this will be that bad. He doesn't have Palpitoad in this one, Excadrill is weak to fire, and neither Krokorok or Sandslash have decent special defence, so we might be able to burn our way through with flamethrower. It takes quite a few moments to find my way to clay, and when I do get there, we begin the battle for the 5th badge. I make 3 attempts, and 3 times we are thwarted by Excadrill. There are a few problems. The first is speed loss from Bulldoze. Without a speed drop, we are fast enough to outspeed Excadrill. With a speed drop, we are not, and it can pretty much wreck all our health in one hit from Bulldoze. Plus, the one time we land the flamethrower on Excadrill, it survives, which isn't ideal. Plus, the first attempt, we get hit with Torment from Krokorok, who isn't a guaranteed one-hit takeout either. So with this in mind, I'm going to get a few more levels, and then we should be able to consistently one-hit both Krokorok and Excadrill. Let's do this. I come back in at level 45, and I figure I am good to go. So, we nearly get caught out yet again, but thankfully, we've got enough of a strength advantage to overcome it. Krokorok and Excadrill are both one-hit takedowns with Flamethrower. We burn through them, and that puts us onto the final battle with Sandslash. We turn up the heat, but it survives Flamethrower and hits us with a Bulldoze, which could be bad, as I do not think we will survive a second one. Even with our health recovery, it is touch and go as Clay heals. We continue to pour on the fire, but we do take it down before it can strike us again. 5 badges down. So then, while I'm talking about what's going on with the channel, the World Pokemon Tournament will be playing in the background. The playthrough of the DLC of Resident Evil 4 Remake concluded some weeks back. Love that. That'll have been a few weeks ago. Actually, no, maybe not. Last week, earlier on in the week. I'm losing track of the time. Don't know if it'll have been uploaded yet. I also began a playthrough of Fable 2. Yes! Been wanting to do that for a while. Too much stuff to play, not enough time. And it's ironic that I'm doing this announcement during the PWT, since you may have noticed, and if you haven't, check it out, there's a new series on here called Pokemon Master Showdown, in which myself and a friend use a randomizer to pluck random Pokemon characters out of a database. We construct a team of 6 using all their appearances in games, anime and written media, and then we fight it out on Pokemon Showdown to see who would win. The first fight was Team Star's Fairy-type specialist Ortega versus Chase, the male protagonist of Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. Something else to watch out for. I'm still not sure on continuing Pokemon Gold Unova, by the way, but I still want to do the 2 GameCube Pokemon games at some point. In regards to upcoming Pokemon challenges, I have plotted ahead for these challenges up until the middle of January anyway, so I have thought things through. After this, it will be coming out a few days after Halloween, so it will be a bit belated, but it will be Pokemon Crystal with a single Misdreavus, which is a prime example of a Pokemon with a decent base stat total, but a terrifyingly bad move pool. This is not a unique thing in Gens 1 and 2, I'm going to be honest. As always folks, if you have any ideas for challenges, head to the comment section down below, or follow the links in the description to my Discord or my Twitter. Sorry, my X. I keep calling it Twitter because I'm a creature of habit. I'm curious to see what is produced. I'm starting to think that maybe I don't need to make this section longer than it needs to be, given it's often 2 or 3 weeks behind the video actually being released when I write and record it. When I was doing these every week, it probably wasn't so much of an issue, but now, yeah, not sure. Next major fight is always Skylar in Mistralton City, and this shouldn't be too bad. I mean, it's an interesting puzzle in this gym, where you are basically charging around a wind tunnel in between blowing winds. It's better than the cannons in base black and white for sure. Our first attempt versus Skylar goes very badly, when we miss 2 rock slides on Swoobat and get hit with a Tract, so we lose a stack of turns while we slowly get whittled down, which is about as far from ideal as can be. On the second attempt though, we one-hit Swoobat with Rock Slide as our move lands and sends it crashing down. Swanna could be dangerous, but we crit a Rock Slide and that's not a problem as the Swan doesn't fly anymore afterwards and we take the victory in that round. Last is Skarmory. I'm pretty sure it has Sturdy, so we strike it with Return to break that. It uses Agility and then misses an Air Cutter before we drop it with Flamethrower. 6 badges down then! Anyway, let's do some more recapping and reminiscing. I've spoken about the hardest fights. Let's talk about the hardest runs and my experiences. I will try to remember what made this hard too. Number 10, Pokemon Heart Gold with Regigigas. This was my fault. I decided I wasn't going to make it easy for myself, and I decided that I wasn't going to use TMs or HMs to enhance our move pool. And as a result, we had an absolutely despicably rough endgame there. So much so that I called it after the fight with Lance and didn't bother heading to Kanto. The limited natural learn set was probably more crippling than the slow start ability. Now number 9, Pokemon Black with Trubbish. This one shouldn't have been hard on the surface, but again a limited move pool, and I was suffering with a mouth infection where I had a tooth out at the time of initially recording it. This is probably the closest I've ever come to quitting a challenge. I took 2 weeks away from it and then came back to it. That was personally a tough one. In number 8 we have Pokemon Fire Red with Cleffa. Come on, it's a Cleffa, and this was before the fairy type was a thing. We didn't hit hard, we took a lot of damage, it went about as well as expected. I just think we were getting out-muscled a lot towards the end of the game. I mean, about the only thing that worked in our favour was a decent move pool. I'll continue with this shortly. In Humiliao City, there is a rival fight, and it's about the first main one since the start of the game, since for some reason I don't count the Pokemon World Tournament. Quirky, but there it is. It's definitely a big U-turn since Black and White won for sure with the number of rival fights, or lack thereof. I'm not too worried about Hugh. He'll have the Samurott, but we have Thunder Punch now after exploring Reversal Mountain to get shards. Unpheasant spams Detect a bunch of times, but we down it with Rock Slide and Return. We don't get hurt in the fight, which is probably for the best, as Samurott is next. We managed to paralyse it with our first Thunder Punch, which probably for the best. We do over half its health, which also important. We get hit for decent damage by Revenge, and I think it tries to go for Aqua Jet, which would have defeated us, but Paralysis saves us, and we down it with a second Thunder Punch. Simisage, not a problem in the slightest, as we burn it up with Flamethrower. Carrying on with the hardest challenges then, let's move on to number 7, and this one is quite a popular video, relatively speaking. We have Pokemon Emerald with a single slacking. It recently became only the second video of mine to pass 1,000 views. Doesn't sound like much to some, but I'm proud of that. Again, like the Regigigas one, I used only the natural move pool with no TMs or HMs, and I avoided using held items in battle too. Definitely a hard one, with arguably the worst ability in the game. I still have some major trauma from several fights here, including the Psychic Gym, the Phoebe fight and the Wallace one too. This was insanely brutal, and somehow it doesn't even make the top 5. Number 6 goes to another Pokemon White 2 challenge just like this one being back in February with Onix and Geodude. 2 Pokemon that are reasonably slow, both of them have their drawbacks, both of them had quad weaknesses to both grass and water, so I recall the back end of the game being brutal, particularly the Iris fight and some of the Elite Four. I believe Colrus was annoying too. Number 5 goes to Pokemon Fire Red. 3 of the top 5 are from Pokemon Fire Red, spoiler alert. Number 5 was Pokemon Fire Red with a single Numel. There's 2 main weaknesses Numel has. There's ground and more notably quad weak to water, which are both fairly common in Kanto, so the experience should speak for itself. Lorelei took a lot of tries. I don't think Lance was particularly pleasant either, and I'm sure the rival was annoying too. Number 4, another Fire Red challenge, and this one was Fire Red with a single Electrike. Again, ground types! Giovanni has them. I remember having so much grief with the rival's Rhydon at the end and losing so many efforts to that with Earthquake. The rest of the run may not have been that bad, but the problems with Rhydon have stuck in the memory and given it this place on the list. Now, the Dragon Gym is next, and I'm not looking forward to this for sure. I wish that I could get Dragon Claw as a TM, but alas, like most of the good moves, it's not until post-game. There are some good TMs in this game, but a lot of them are locked away from me. Same with Swords Dance and Brick Break. I need to get battle points in the PWT, which for me to do would break the run because the levels get reset to 25 and I need to use free Pokemon, so it's not happening. If I want to get a power up, I'll have to make do with Home Claws, which do not get until Victory Road. The Opelucid gym is probably going to be horrible. I make a few attempts, and on the second one, I do get to Drayden's Haxorus, but only because the Flygon missed 2 rock slides on us. We've just been messed up too much over the course of the fight, and as a result, 1 Dragon Dance, 1 Dragon Tail, and we are a goner. So, I do not think we're going to do it at this level. Consider this, before we get to the Elite Four and the Champion, we've got this gym, we've got a Colress fight, so more sturdy and Thunderwave shenanigans, and there's also a water gym as well, so I believe going to level may not be the worst idea because I think we will need those levels. At least in the water gym, we do have a super effective move. Here, we are stuck with Return. I never thought I would say these words, but not getting Rage here has somewhat handicapped us in this game, since that was a key tactic when I did Pokemon Emerald with Charmander back in January. The free attack buff was nice. I do my grinding up to level 81 and then I return to the fight with Drayden. I am a little more confident this time, and it turns out that I have a right to be, as this time we can 2-hit Druddigon when it comes down to it. It doesn't have rough skin in this game, which is nice. We do get hit with Revenge, but no problem. Flygon is also a 2-hit with Return. It does hit an Earth Power for decent damage, but not really a problem. Haxorus does inflict massive damage on us with Dragon Tail, but we can take it out with 2 returns, just as we have throughout the fight. The second one being a vital crit that drops it hard to take it down after it ate the Citrus Berry, and that is 7 badges down. Next is the water gym, and we will have to see here. This could get very interesting indeed. That Thunder Punch is about to come in real handy. Some possible issues then. Caracosta has Sturdy, Jellicent has Cursed Body, and Wailord is Hefty. So somewhere we're probably going to get hit with a water attack. I may replace Return with Shadow Claw for this fight, just in case of Cursed Body. Anyway, I go for a Rock Slide on Caracosta. We do less than half, but it goes for Shell Smash rather than attacking, and we promptly punch it out with Thunder Punch to drop it. Wailord survives Thunder Punch on red health and goes for Amnesia. We have to wait a long time while its health drops and then creeps back up when the heal comes in, but 2 more attacks are enough to take it out, and before we know it, we're facing Jellicent at the last. It does hit a Scald on us, but we shake it off. We are immune to the burn too. 2 Thunder Punches take it out to give us a win. Just before I go into my top 3 for the hardest challenges I've done, let's talk about some of the honourable mentions again. For Gen 2, there was Pokemon Silver with Pichu and Pokemon Silver with Togepi. Both baby Pokemon, neither of them blessed with fantastic movesets or the stats to get around what we were fighting. For Gen 3, there were the runs in Ruby and Sapphire with Archie and Max's teams and moves, both of which were tough because those two do not know how to team build. There's also some Emerald challenges with Magnemite and also the video where I used the rivals team and moves. Just to give you an idea about that one, I was planning on doing it with all 3 starters, but that was 80 odd challenges ago and you may have noticed I've not gone back to it. Also, in Emerald, Growlithe for one and Cyndaquil for another, because, as we know, there is too much water in that region. For Gen 4, there was Pokemon Platinum with only normal type moves but no normal type Pokemon. Ghost types were a pain in that run. And also, Pokemon Pearl with Bronzor. That was more slow than anything else. We had great defences so we didn't die easily, but the problem was we couldn't really kill anything else quickly. For Gen 5, I want to talk about Pokemon Black with a single Beedrill. That was brutal, and it put me off doing Gen 5 for the longest while, for sure. It is true, you know, if you look at the publishing dates, Black with Beedrill uploaded on the 21st of October 2021. Now, there was a challenge in White 2 in that time, but the next challenge in Pokemon Black wasn't until the 4th of July the year after, so there was a good 8 months in between Pokemon Black challenges. So, just to back up what I've said there. Anyway, Chorus then, and oh dear, I'm really not looking forward to this for sure. Can I just say again how much I hate Sturdy as an ability? I've said it before, no doubt I'll say it again. So, I have a Cherry Berry and I work out that to win, he has 2 Pokemon who have Sturdy and Thunder Wave. I need to get a flinch off Rock Slide on one of them. This pulls double duty of breaking the Sturdy and stopping us from being paralysed. The first attempt, we get no flinches and lose to Magnezone. The second attempt, we get no flinches, we take Magneton and Magnezone out, but we lose to Metang. The third attempt, we flinch Magneton and take it out with Rock Slide and Flamethrower. We use the same combination of moves to take out Magnezone, using our berry to heal the paralysis in the interim. Metang and Klinklang are pretty easy to knock out with a single Flamethrower apiece before Beheeyem is last. I never saw this thing's pre-evolution in the wild until Gen 8, so I keep forgetting this exists. It takes a few Shadow Claws to take it out thanks to a full restore, but we eventually manage it and can move on. Getsis is going to be awkward for sure, I can tell. There is a fight with Kyurem beforehand, and I have a feeling this might be nasty. However though, we can beat Kyurem first time thanks to getting a flinch off Rock Slide, even if 2 of those super effective moves aren't quite enough to bring it down. The actual fight with Getsis goes so very badly, as we get Toxic Poisoned by Cofagrigus, and although we do take it down with Shadow Claw, our fate is sealed. And with Shadow Claw, we can't do enough damage to Seismitoad, and it takes us down with a combination of Earthquake and Poison damage. I can already tell this is going to be absolutely horrendous. I need to look at the moveset. I make a lot of attempts at this, and I do one where I get to Hydreigon, taking out 3 of his team, but I lose so many attempts to Toxic. I need to get a flinch on Cofagrigus and hope our damage roll is enough to take it out with Flamethrower on the next turn, because I replace Shadow Claw with Return. That is not always the case at this level. Seismitoad can hit us hard with Earthquake, but it is a 2-hit with Return. Drapion isn't something we can one-hit with Flamethrower. I do try to drop Hydreigon with a Rock Slide for the flinch and a Return, but not quite enough damage. So, that's worrying. I may need a few more levels, so I'll go do that. I come back at level 93 and then get most of the way into a fight and realise that I forgot to put the leftovers back on. That was dopey. Again, it takes quite a few efforts to get past Cofagrigus without being Toxic Poisoned, but although in one attempt we get to the 5th opponent, Electros this time, taking out Cofagrigus, Seismitoad, Drapion and Hydreigon, we lose to the eel. That is mostly annoying. I made a boo-boo there, which wasn't good, but I am only a sliver away from one-hitting Drapion here with Flamethrower, so 1 or 2 more levels may give us a massive benefit. And I think I will need those levels for the Elite Four and the Champion regardless, so I don't consider this grind wasted time. First attempt at level 95 goes absolutely cracking, as we get the flinch straight away on Cofagrigus with Rock Slide, and then with it unable to move, we hit Flamethrower to drop it hard. Seismitoad does hit Earthquake, but we take it out with 3 returns after Getsis uses a full restore. And we are getting health back now. Drapion is a one-hit with Flamethrower, which is excellent, before this time, alas, we don't get the flinch on Hydreigon with Rock Slide. We do survive a counter Rock Slide from it though. Hydreigon, thankfully, is a better special attacker than physical. Electros is a one-hit with Flamethrower, before Toxicroak survives that same move and lamps us with Poison Jab. I am expecting Sucker Punch on the next turn, but it doesn't go for it, and we take it out with our next attack to beat Getsis hard and give us the win at long last. Thank goodness! Time to move on. Let's round out the hardest challenges then and talk about the top 3. There's a Gen 3 one, a Gen 4 one and a Gen 5 one. Let's talk about number 3, which was Pokemon Black with a single Swinub. Do you have any idea how bad Swinub is? If you don't, go watch the video. It is frigging terrible. It has a lot of weaknesses, a low base stat total, and there's not really too much we can do to offset staff debuffs, so an Intimidate would often be a killer. I remember getting walled in so many fights in this, particularly the Lenora fight, the final Bianca fight, and the Marshall fight at the Elite Four too. Number 2 is another Pokemon Fire Red one, and if you thought Swinub was bad, meet Makuhita. Makuhita is absolutely atrocious. It has a lot of attack and a lot of HP, but low defences and speed. So we got murdered absolutely frequently by anything with a bit of speed and a reasonably effective move. Sabrina was tough. The rival fights were insanely difficult. I've actually used Makuhita in a challenge twice, but at least in the other one we had a Machop to do most of the heavy lifting in Emerald with Machop and Makuhita. But the finale, the hardest challenge I've ever done, bar none, is Pokemon Pearl with a single Shinx. Shinx is bad, but I think the difficulty of this challenge can be summed up in one sentence. I had to spam 6 double teams for 3 of the last 6 major fights at the end of the game to get through. For the final rival fight, and his Torterra with Earthquake, for Bertha with her ground types, and for Cynthia with her particular team and the damage they are capable of inflicting on electric types. That is hands down the hardest one I ever did do. Not to make comparisons, it was a different game in the same gen, but just to point out, Mah-Dry-Bread did try Shinx in Platinum and couldn't finish it, so that might give you an idea about how rough a time that Pokemon has in that game when it tries to solo it. It is time for the fight with Hugh then. We've been fighting our way through Victory Road hard and I am ready for him. Pyroclast is suitably battle scarred at this point and we're going to do this final fight with him. I do not think this is going to be the worst thing to come our way in the last 6 fights of the game, far from it. It takes a few efforts, believe it or not, those words come back to haunt me. The combination of Earthquake from Bouffalont and Surf from Samurott give us some trouble. But when we get down to it, we can down Unpheasant with Thunder Punch for a knockout before we do finally get a flinch on Bouffalont with Rock Slide to stop it in its tracks, and then we take it out with Flamethrower. Samurott goes down to Rock Slide, another flinch and a Thunder Punch before last is Simisage, and Flamethrower gives us the victory over our rival. Just before we go into the Elite Four then, here are our stats at level 98. Our speed is our best stat by a mile, but our physical attack is next best. Special attack is okay, but special defence probably the worst. I'm running with Shadow Claw and Home Claws for the moment because I figure it might be useful for Chantal and Caitlin. I can see the worst of the upcoming fights being Marshall for sure, but I think now that we have Home Claws, we might be able to take them on. Grimsley could go either way, but we should be fine. I may get rid of Flamethrower shortly because, bar Bisharp, there's nothing we need it for potentially. The hardest of the last few fights is going to be Iris for sure. Aggron, Lapras and Hydreigon are going to cause us some major issues, but I think we can get it done. Aggron is the other thing we might need Flamethrower for, unless I want to do stuff with Dig, which I don't. Choices. Take your guess on if we can do it at this level or not right now, folks. I go Chantal first, and this is hands down possibly the easiest Chantal fight I've ever had. Now, this can normally be quite a tricky fight. I mean, I didn't mention her on my honourable mentions, but she's probably on there. The biggest annoyance is her propensity for Will-O-Wisp. Guess what she can't do here though? And we go for 2 Home Claws attacks while Cthagrigus hits us with Shadow Balls. Since I don't have to worry about being burned, we power up with impunity and then work through her team, tearing it apart with Shadow Claw. Cofagrigus doesn't survive it, Golurk doesn't survive it, Driftblim doesn't either, and neither does Chandelure at the last. Easy peasy. I decide to do Caitlyn while I'm here and head into this fight with much of the same plan as I had before. Only, I think we may only have to do one home clause this time, because I have a theory she may be able to hurt us more than Chantal did. Special defence is our Achilles heel after all. I quickly eat my words. So fun fact, her Mashana has Yawn, which, not ideal. Still, I try to battle through the sleep condition, but lose 2 attempts when we don't wake up. 1 to Dream Eater from Mashana, 1 through being psychicked by Reuniclus, so that's not a starter. If Caitlyn wants to play silly buggers, I'm down for that. 1 Chesto Berry later, and she looks like a fool when we get 2 Home Claws attacks going versus Mashana before falling asleep to Yawn. We wake up and take out her entire team very quickly. Shadow Claw doing in Mashana, Reuniclus and Gothitelle before we Thunder Punch Sigilif out hard to take the victory. I'll go Grimsley next, and I replace Shadow Claw with Return. Shouldn't need that move again. I'm always leery about using healing items at this point, particularly to restore PP, but I'm in this Elite 4 challenge until the end. We're doing this until me and Pyroclast are the last ones standing. I will need a few Home Claws here because of Crocodile with Intimidate for sure. First is Lipard, and that makes it a bit easier than Black and White one, because in that game it's Scrafty with Sand Attack out first. Here, Sand Attack doesn't concern me, but a Fake Out and a few Night Slashers from Lipard do while we're powering up. I could have gone for a third Home Claws, but I choose to take Lipard out with Return instead. I do the same to Crocodile, even with the attack drop from Intimidate before Scrafty is the third opponent. It survives Return, I didn't see that coming, and then lands Rock Tomb. He heals it, but we shoot it down with a Flamethrower to the face before Bisharp doesn't stand up to Flamethrower either. Marshall then, and I believe this might be the hardest fight of the lot, but with a combo of Home Claws and Return, we might well be okay. Still, he's not without his challenges, so we need to be careful. There is a tactic I may resort to if Return isn't strong enough to do some one-hit knockouts. So, our first attempts go badly, and it's because of Throw using Bulldoze and Rock Tomb on us to wreck our speed while we're trying to power up. We need to use 3 Home Clauses to one-hit Throw with Return. My gamble was to use the super effective Aerial Ace until I then realised I forgot to get the TM, which, not ideal. As I said, I'm here till the end, I'm not going back to get it. After many losses, I give up on the physical approach and decide that I'm just going to Flamethrower everything. This is not without its challenges though. Throw is a 2-hit with Flamethrower, Conkeldurr likes to go for Stone Edge, Sork likes to go for Rock Slide, and if 3 super effective hits land in a row, we are not surviving. But Stone Edge and Rock Slide are not accurate moves, so I figure one of them will miss eventually. On the triumphant run, we take Throw out with 2 Flamethrowers, getting hit with a Bulldoze in exchange. Conkeldurr only goes to bulk up, a fatal mistake as we 2-hit that with Flamethrower. Sork does land Rock Slide, but we burn it, and that means we can take it out with some Thunder Punches. Mienshao is faster thanks to the Bulldoze. We get tagged with a high jump kick, but that's not a problem, as we do at least one-hit that with Flamethrower. Iris then, and the final battle. Now, this could be brutal. Again, a fight that could have been in my top 10 hardest, or even my honourable mentions. I don't believe I've done enough challenges in this game to immediately think of her though. I'm going to need Rock Slide for sure to hope for the flinch on Hydreigon. I think that is my best chance. Flinch it, power up, strike. I'll need Rock Slide to be strong for Lapras and probably Archeops and Druddigon as well. I think I will need Flamethrower for Aggron. After checking Bulbapedia, I find out it doesn't have Sturdy, thankfully, because that would be terrifying. There are a lot of false starts here as I work out what needs to happen. Here's my takeaways. Aggron is a one-hit with Flamethrower. We might survive 2 Surfs from Hydreigon on low health depending on the damage range. If Haxorus, Dragon Dancers, we are not faster. If we're above certain health, Haxorus will go for Dragon Dance. If we're not, it will go for Earthquake, which is fatal. Eventually, I get a run where the following happens. We Hone Claws once versus Hydreigon. We get hit with Surf, but our Rock Slide flinches it, which, absolutely massive, as we take it out with Return to put us 1 up. Aggron is once again that one hit with Flamethrower. Even with 6 Hone Claws attacks, we will not one hit Haxorus due to the Focus Sash, so I really need the flinch with Rock Slide, and we get it, meaning that it doesn't attack and we can take it out with Return. Thankfully, Lapras is a one-hit takedown with our boosted Rock Slide. Druddigon survives Rock Slide and gives me a scare when it hits a crit Dragon Tail and she heals, but a crit Return takes it out. Last is Archeops, and if that is faster, we are probably screwed. It isn't though. We land the Rock Slide and we knock her last Pokemon out. We take the win, we move on into the Hall of Fame just to confirm that we have won the run. Well, that was interesting. I hope you enjoyed hearing my thoughts, and it's not over yet. As the credits begin to roll, I just want to do a few more mentions about some of my favourite challenges this time over the last 100. The first one I ever did has a fond memory, Pokemon Pearl with Glameow. I remember punching the air and cheering when I won that one. I believe it was knocking out Cynthia's Roserade at the last. The first one is always the trickiest I think you'll find. But the whole video does look terrible going back to it. But I am proud of it in a way. It's the foundation of everything else that came after. Another favourite is this very game, Pokemon White 2 with Sandile. That evolution line is one of my all-time favourites, so that is something that I enjoyed. Same with Pokemon Black with Axew, another favourite evolution line of mine. And it told me just how pleasurable Gen 5 is with Mold Breaker as an ability, because sturdy, bye bye, not a problem. Pokemon Fire Red with No Stab was quite a fun run. I seem to be referring to games that had my favourites in them, as I used the Gengar in that game, another favourite. And in keeping with that theme, Pokemon Y with Croagunk was also quite fun. Pokemon Red with Agatha's team and moves was a pretty interesting experience. Pokemon Emerald with contest moves was also quite fun, and I do want to do another in that line with a different theme at some point. I mentioned Pokemon Platinum with only normal type moves as a hard run, but that was also quite a fun one. Notice how I'm mentioning team runs here quite a bit. Weird that. It's the same with the Fire Red with bug moves run that I did a few weeks back. That was a fun experience. Pokemon Heart Gold with Baneri, also fun. Pokemon Silver with Marill was quite a good experience because it was my first dip back into Gen 2 for about 15 years maybe by my reckoning. Ditto Pokemon Red with Vulpix, because when I first thought about doing this whole thing, that challenge was one that I immediately wanted to do, so getting it out there was a good memory. Pokemon Y with Litleo was a good experience because it was the first time I took a challenge request. It was from the same person who I'm now doing Pokemon Master Showdown with. He thought I wouldn't be able to get past Lysander's Mega Gyarados. Sunny Day and Will-O-Wisp proves otherwise. I've mentioned 13 already, so you'd think they can't all be favourites, but there are some good memories. Emerald with Catnea, I enjoyed that. It was nice to have an easy Tate and Liza fight for once. Platinum with Weasel for my first Platinum challenge, that was a good experience. Water types do tend to have it quite easy sometimes, particularly if they can learn Surf and Ice Beam and get quite a lot out of it. Just before we go into the minutiae, I just want to do another shout out. This is to the people who consistently comment on the challenges, because if nobody is watching these, then it defeats the purpose. Now, I do want to point out, I have gone through the comments, there may possibly be some people that have missed off this because I do get a bit of tunnel vision. So, if you do comment frequently and I do not shout your name out, please, please, please accept my sincerest apologies, but I think I did get most, if not all. First, my one and only Patreon, Jason Cabannock, big shout out, always involved, always commenting, always suggesting ideas. There's also Pokemon Master Dracana, who finally got their request a few weeks back for Emerald with Surskit, constantly commenting. Dirty Den made a few comments recently. Forgive Man threw quite a few comments and challenge requests my way. Alex Stilgenbauer /Stilgen16, always in there, always coming up with ideas. JWJ made a few comments and I believe suggested the silver with Porygon challenge a few weeks back. OK-XX2000 made a few, and there's also Jared Bowen, who did, among others, the suggestions for the Archie and Maxi teams run. Dennis Varker, wherever you may be, has thrown quite a few comments and challenges my way. As I said, if I have forgotten anyone, it's not personal, but yeah, just a big thank you. Either way, if you've watched, liked, commented, subscribed, thank you so much for sticking through my assorted mad ramblings over the last 100 videos. I know I probably overlevel a bit too much sometimes, I know I probably rely on certain moves a bit too much, I know there's some challenges that probably didn't come across as that challenging, but I've had fun. With the quite notable exception of that Trubbish challenge, where, not to sound dramatic, I genuinely thought I was dying at one point. Yeah, that does sound dramatic. Next time is a return to Gen 2, Pokemon Crystal with a single Misdreavus. I did get suggested Pokemon Emerald with only ghost type moves, and I will probably look to do that at some point, but not right now. Anyway folks, I did have a nice holiday, but I truly have gone on too long in this video, so just a quick note from me. Thank you so very much for watching, take care now, have a great day, and I will see you next time. So long, farewell, goodbye. Here is to the next 100 challengers. See you next time. Take care, au revoir. Bye bye.